Welcome to another episode of Women Investing in Women. Robin and I are super excited for our guest all the way from the UK, and you are going to be blown away by what you're about to hear. We do this program because we want to create opportunities for women to get in touch with themselves, look for ways where they can feel supported, and countless ways in which we can connect women so that they can invest their time, knowledge, insight, experience in so many different ways to invest in another woman so that women are coming together to lift each other up. In that theme today, I am happy to introduce a dear friend and somebody I truly value from an insight perspective and as a friendship perspective, Catherine Rolt. Catherine, welcome to Women Investing in Women.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited. Kaz, you were one of the first people that interviewed me, and it was such a privilege and honor. And you're just such a shining light in the world. No matter what we're up against, you just shine brightly. Which is what is
very kind of you. Thank you. So Catherine is a integrated coach. What do I mean by that? She helps people connect their mind, body, and spirit. And no matter where in life they are, she helps them find their way back to themselves, their inner self, and helps them find ways to heal from the inside out. She's an integrative, a Chinese practitioner with extensive experience in helping people, but she also knows to help herself. She will maybe briefly touch about this. She has been born and living with very rare conditions that continuously needs pain management and intervention. And so she has figured out a way over the years to heal herself and be in that place of peace. And she takes that lived experience to then help others find that same peace for themselves. Catherine, as we get started, can you give us a little bit of insight to the pain paradox and how you have understood it, mastered it, and how you are using that lived experience to heal others?
Okay, it's a fantastic question. I think, and I really want to keep this very simple, what I've discovered through being a patient my entire life and a practitioner is that so far I've never met anybody who gets through their lives without some challenges and some physical, mental, economical, spiritual pain. And I think our educational system is forcing people, in a sense, to believe that there's something wrong when pain hits on any level. And our the shop spaces, our pharmaceutical spaces in shops is growing more and more with quick fixes. You can take this digest aid or the painkillers or whatever it is, rather than actually pain, the pain that we have mentally, physically, and spiritually is a feedback mechanism. So part of my work is taking people home to go, oh, I'm in pain. Okay, well, let's have a look at this. What's going on? What do I need to do for myself? And how can I ask for help? And what does that look like? And I think the amazing work that you are doing is women in our Western culture are not very good at asking for help from each other. We've been almost set up to be competitive. So my experience as a patient and a practitioner has shown me how to take people back home and how to interpret the pain so that you're not frightened of it. Because if you're going to be in pain, and you're also frightened of being in pain, then what we can immediately do is go, no, 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 you being in pain is what's right with you. So can we just begin to relax into the pain and discover what is it trying to tell us? So that's quite a different way of looking at what the Western culture is trying to just eliminate, fix, sort out, run away from. I'm not sure. Yes,
yeah.
Robin?
Yeah, I was going to say, this is really, really fascinating. You've shared various pieces of information and insight that are almost paradoxical. Well, first, I love your notion that to normalize pain, we're gonna have pain on some level, on every level, at some point in time. If for some people it might be chronic, but the notion that if you're having pain doesn't mean there's something necessary, like there's not necessarily something wrong with that. Obviously, there's the pain is information, and not something we just want to squelch and get away from. So that's very insightful. But the other insight is that we have responsibility to care for ourselves, to do things for ourselves. We have agency and responsibility in this. And part of that responsibility is asking for help. To me, that's kind of paradoxical. You know, I'm responsible, and the way I show that responsibility is asking for help. And many people, but women in particular, especially women who perceive themselves as being strong and capable, are very almost loath to ask for help. So how do you normalize and make it okay for women to ask for help?
Okay. So I think this is a really, really, really big subject. So my training makes me go deep, deep, deep into things, and hopefully make very complicated things quite simple. So I encourage the women that come to me, I encourage them to work out who do they feel safe with before they ask for help. Because we live in a culture where vulnerability is considered to be a weakness, whereas the most powerful and strong women that I know of are the ones that have the courage to be vulnerable. They're strong enough to be vulnerable, and they're strong enough to have worked out, who do I have in my life that's safe, that's not going to take advantage right now of me having a low moment. I'm at the lowest of my humanity rather than the highest of my humanity. So I've just done a series of little tiny videos when I myself, as a patient and practitioner, was feeling vulnerable, overwhelmed, frightened. And it was a totally normal, appropriate emotional response to the 10 days I've just had. But I want to normalize the real human experience that we have, because if we can feel our feelings and actually ask for help when we're feeling them, so that somebody will go, if I was sitting in your shoes right now, Catherine, I'd be very frightened too. Then you sort of feel braver, don't you? If a girlfriend can say that to you, or someone, you know, instead of going, yes, but have you tried that? Or no, you have to be positive. That's not validating. So firstly, I say to people, please work out, do you feel safe with the person that you are going to ask for help from? Because we're not educated to be safe when somebody asks for help. We're not educated to know what it is like to be vulnerable and to be okay with being vulnerable. So if we're not okay with feeling vulnerable, how are we going to be okay when someone else is vulnerable and going, please, I need help? Does that answer the question?
Oh, Cash, you're muted. Sorry.
Absolutely. And as you are answering Robin's question, what's coming up for me is the importance of women building their sisterhood cradle to grave. Yeah. Not all people we're friendly with are our friends. And not all women we engage with get us, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
who are those women, and how do we create that sisterhood? And how do we show up for them is equally important, because my visual of asking for help is like I'm putting my hand out, right? And somebody else is going to put their hand on top of my hand to help me out. So I need to be able to reverse it and do it the other way around too, because that balances the power in that relationship, and giving and receiving strengthens that.
Yeah.
So what advice do you have for women to build those safe relationships by being a safe place first?
What I teach is for people to be willing to get used to their emotional gear stick. So if women are drivers, literally drivers of cars, and the average car has 5 gears, unless it's an automatic, most of us have 5 emotional states. And what I encourage people to do is to give up on the notion that there are positive emotions and there are negative emotions. So the thing that I love about teaching people how the natural world is within us is because we have seasons within us, and each organ in each season actually allows us to have the freedom of emotional states. So the only people, and this is quite a black and white thing to say, which isn't necessarily completely true, but for this right now, the only people that women are going to feel safe with are the ones who are going to actually allow you and encourage you to not feel any shame or any judgment or any intellectual assessments when you are angry, frightened, happy, sad. There are 5 key emotions. Now, if you can be with someone when they are frustrated, let's say, and you can allow them to be frustrated, they'll come out of the frustration really quickly. Now, solutions and inspiration for whatever the issues are will come much quicker if you can allow the person to access emotionally what is happening.
This is very interesting. What's coming to mind for me is envisioning myself. I mean, I hopefully I do the things that you're talking about. Give people space and be a container for their emotions. But what I think is very common is when we hear someone's emotions or hear someone's situation, we want to either jump right in and fix it for them or tell them how to fix it, or we maybe feel a sense of responsibility or a sense of maybe guilt or something of needing to somehow solve this problem or take it on ourselves, as opposed to like being at an art museum and you're just simply observing these pictures on the wall. You don't have to go fix it. You just simply be a space just to observe and to listen. So how do you help women move from, oh my gosh, my friend has shared this with me, now I need to help her fix it or tell her what to do? How can we be better just containers and just holding space for people, as opposed to jumping in and feeling like we are now obligated to fix something for them?
I think, well, Robin, one of my key phrases is stop fixing. Nobody needs fixing. It's actually quite patronizing and rude, actually. We're not meaning to. So one of the things I love saying to people is, please practice being a really good listener. And what does that actually mean? So again, most of our culture, we are not taught to listen to each other. So Robin, I'm not going to do it to you right now, but most of us, it's like while you're talking, I'm waiting to respond. I'm not sitting and listening to what you're asking of me. And most of us in sisterhood, first of all, we don't behave as if we're sisters. We're sort of in a competition, which is ludicrous, okay? And we're definitely not listening to each other. We're kind of going, where did she get that color lipstick from? I've got to find out. And as for that jumper, it's it's lovely, but I think it would suit me better. We have this stuff going on. So the two tips that I'm always working on inside myself, and I suggest other people, is: are you a good listener? Because if you're a good listener, you won't be fixing. Because most of people want to hear the sound of their own voices. They have their solutions. But if we're butting in, we're sort of going like that with their own wisdom.
That is a very, very powerful message, Catherine. And the other thing I notice is some women are quick to tell you how your problem is not as big as their problem and wait till you know mine. So even that becomes a competitive environment, and that just shuts things down, right? So there's a term for it, conversational narcissism, right? You turn everything about you. You do not give the other person the space. You don't listen with empathy. And ultimately, the first act of love is to listen. And that truly is an art, right? Quieten everything. Don't process it in any way other than understand. Listen to understand, right? And then if you want to help, then ask what helps look like for them.
Yes.
That is something I have learned, right? When I was younger and raising my siblings, I felt like I had to be the mother. And just like mom would jump in and do, I had to jump in and do. But my siblings were, one was older than me and two were younger than me. And I started watching that there was resentment building. And I needed to step back and wait for them to ask me and tell them whatever they need, they can ask me. And when they ask, I will help and I won't jump in, right? I needed to have that conversation with my siblings. And it was a good thing I learned with my siblings instead of learning with grown adults as a grown woman. How can individuals learn this or be in that mindful space to be able to listen when culturally, when somebody stops to breathe, is the next person's chance to talk, right? I mean, that is the Germanic Anglo-Saxon culture. Yeah. Whereas the Latin culture, you talk over one another to show you care. In the Asian culture, you don't talk even if there is dead space until you're invited in. So culturally, communication and listening and speaking are different. How do you bridge that and make it okay for people to know how to do this?
There's a lovely expression, which is not mine, by the way. And it's, if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, then that's the moment when usually you're willing to go to any lengths to make changes. And very often the people that come to see me are sick and tired of being sick and tired. And the relationships that they really want in their lives. So the big sort of clue here is, what do you value in your life? And most people value connection with their spouse, with their lover, with their children. And if you really sit down with someone and you listen, you can guide them very, very lovingly and respectfully to all the places that aren't working for them. And usually one root of the issue is that they are not listening. They are busy fixing. Now, if you can get a human being to become willing to listen to themselves, that already is going to change the focus immediately. So one of the tips I give people, and I have people all over the world doing this, I go, listen, it doesn't matter how busy you are, please, at least 3 times a day, can you go and sit in your bathroom, in your loo, or the office loo, or anywhere that's private. Just go and sit down. You don't have to be going to the loo. Just sit down in a cupboard, I don't mind, and just check in with yourself and make yourself laugh because you're in a cupboard and this lunatic English woman has asked you to check in with yourself, which you've never done in your life before. And I want you to ask yourself one question. How are you? How am I doing? How am I feeling? Now, if you get people, which I do, I get people doing it, and they suddenly discover that they're lonely, they're frightened, they're hungry, they're angry. It doesn't matter. I literally say to them, it doesn't matter what the answer is. I just want you to listen to it. And then you can open the cupboard door and go back to your work. And then they go, but then what happens? And I go, well, you're already beginning to listen to yourself. And what happened when you opened the cupboard door and you went back to work? And they went, well, I noticed I felt better. And I went, yes. So when you are asked to just listen to somebody, you are already the solution. Sometimes all we need to do is say, Kaz, I'm angry. Don't even ask me why. Just right at this moment, I'm angry. Can you please just witness my anger? And Kaz will go, yes, thank you. And then you've moved on. That if you watch children, they will go through emotional states so fast. They can't even remember why they were upset because an adult has witnessed them. So firstly, we need to witness ourselves, and then we need to witness other people. And it can be really that simple. And my experience with all the people I work with is it is that simple. So if you find someone in a cupboard, it's probably because this English woman has said, just check in with yourself, just have a private moment. How am I doing? How am I feeling?
Yeah, that is really great to take the time to check in with ourselves. How am I feeling? And maybe even you're not in a position to really do anything about it, but as you say, witness and check in. One notion that I want to circle to is when you said you're sick at the beginning of this answer, we're sick and tired of being sick and tired. You need to do something, make changes. And oftentimes I have both done this and then observed it where the answer is, well, if someone else will just change, then I'll be happy. Or if something about my external circumstances will change, then I will be happy. And so how do you get people to move from it's their fault, it's always all their fault, and to truly not just give lip service to taking responsibility for their lives, but to truly be able to take responsibility, to truly take the actions they need to do?
That's a very big question. Okay. I think I'm going to go back to the emotions. I think, please excuse me, I've got a cat that has suddenly become very codependent. Just let me show you, who's insisting that I give him attention. He won't be outside this room and he won't be in it. So we'll just have to work. He's like a metaphor for, a client, really. Anyway, I want to go back to our emotional states because, again, I think we live in a culture where we're not allowed to have our emotions. And then what we do is this is the way that I put it, we headbutt our lives intellectually. So we know in theory that we're apparently an adult in an adult body, when in fact the reality very often is we're stuck teenagers in adult bodies and we're feeling quite needy. And then we're told, we gather that we're not allowed to be needy. That's not a grown-up, mature thing to be, okay? So then we kind of push our needs down further rather than actually being able to say how we feel. And maybe part of that feeling is coming from the fact that we don't know how to take responsibility. We don't know how to grow up. So then we circle back to do you have, you or Robin or Kaz or Catherine, do we have a couple of real friends who we can say, do you know what? I don't know how to do this grown-up business. I don't know how to do my life. I don't really know how to do a relationship. I don't know how to do a job. And I don't know how to become the best human being that I can. Well, you know, if we could have coffee mornings actually talking about interesting subjects like that, rather than competing with the lipsticks and whatever it was and the Botox, I don't know, you know, actually we would be giving each other real nourishment. And then it's easier almost immediately to go, well, hey, a challenge is coming my way, and of course I can handle it, because there's more right with me than I've ever realized before. But if you're living in a world, which unfortunately many, many young people are now, where the focus all the time is what's wrong with them. If they haven't got the bank account, they haven't got the mortgage, they haven't got the relationship, they don't know what gender they are, you know, they're not having 6 orgasms a week, a month, whatever. I mean, they're bombarded with information overload, which is telling them they're not okay. And then on top of that, they listen to some spiritual guru who says that they can take responsibility. And it's like such a loaded word. Whereas if somebody was standing up and saying, hey, I didn't have a clue what I was doing either, by the way, and made it fun and light, you know, and actually gave them back the focus of this is what's right with you, that you're feeling confused. This is what's right with you, that you haven't got a clue. It's a fantastic place to begin. But we don't say that to each other. Do you know what I mean? I mean, if the three of us did a 6-week series, literally, on being really authentically honest emotionally, forget the intellectual stuff, emotionally, you could actually cause a revolution amongst women. You could. And Robin, you do. We do. We already are causing the revolution, the good revolution.
That's absolutely brilliant, Catherine, because ultimately we are feeling creatures who are able to think and act.
Yes.
And when we start there, we are starting at the root of our very being.
Yeah.
How, if you were to give 3 tips on how every woman can integrate her thinking, her feeling, and her acting, right? Mind, body, and spirit. How can she best integrate those to be present for herself so that she is able to hold space for her? Because we need to know to do it for ourselves to be able to then pass it on to others, right? Because if my cup is empty, I have nothing to pour into somebody else's. How can a woman go about getting in that place of Zen, in that place of peace for herself so that she's truly integrated as a whole person?
I think the biggest tip as a priority is, I think that all women have to come to terms with the fact that they are actually spiritual bodies in a physical jacket. So they are never alone. But I think we're taught that we're alone, which we're not. So the biggest tip, I'm not saying go and join a religion, but once you begin to realize that you are a spiritual being and you are connected to nothing else but love, whatever that means to you, then your obligation on every single level is to fall in love with yourself, not in a narcissistic way, but in a, you know, this is me, warts and all. So I listened to someone the other day, and apparently scientifically, I'm not going to get it completely right, but an average man will take note, if he's got mirrors around him, he'll take note of himself 100 times in a day. A woman will actually be taking note of herself internally and externally over 1 million times every single day. Now, if that is so, which I suspect it is, once we begin to go, right, I'm making a commitment to love myself and discover what that is. Doesn't mean to say I have to like myself, because maybe I'm a rageaholic right now, and maybe I have no control of my temper. Maybe I'm impatient. Maybe I'm a bit of a bitch, excuse that language here. Maybe I'm dishonest. But if you begin to go, I'm going to love myself enough to start liking myself, that's also huge, because you cannot go anywhere in life and have any kind of meaningful relationship, job, health, nothing, if you don't do two things. One is spiritual being in a physical jacket, and two, make a commitment to love yourself and then to begin to like yourself. Then the world really is your oyster.
Beautiful.
They're not small things.
Yeah. Every single conversation that Cass and I have goes zipping by. And so as we're getting toward the end of our time here, how can any women who are listening to this, or men, I suppose, are listening to this, how could they get a hold of you and learn more about your work and what you bring to the world?
There are several books out there. There's this one, The Pain Paradox. So it's on Amazon and wherever else books are, it's out there. So you can get that. But also, I've got something very exciting to tell anyone that's interested. On this coming Friday, for a week, you can buy this extraordinarily wonderful book. I have to say that because I've written it. But I'll tell you why it's extraordinary. You can actually buy it for on Kindle for 99 cents for 1 week. Now, at the end of every single chapter are tips about how to cherish yourself on a mind, body, and spirit level. So you just have to look up Catherine Rolt. And if you wanted to, download this book, because it would give you information about yourself on a natural, integrated level. That the reason why I set out to write it is because there aren't many books out there that put the whole thing, mind, body, and spirit, together so that you begin to feel empowered, which is what I wanted to do.
That is such a beautiful closing note, Catherine. We will make sure that this information is available to our community. Thank you so much for spending this time to have this conversation. And I would love to close this with your own words. Every one of us women need to come to terms with the realization and find a way to get there, is that we are spiritual beings in this human body having a human experience. And in that place of spirit where it is energy, we're connected to one another. And how do we tap into then that positive energy and channel that positive energy so that our mind, body, and spirit is integrated for us to live the life we were meant to live in this human form, so that the spirit feels fulfilled? So ladies out there, go get your hands on the book, learn the tools to integrate your mind, body, and spirit, and let's keep building a world that truly is meaningful and kind to each other. And let's build a world where we just stop and listen to ourselves, and then pass that gift on to listen to each other.